This is Fantasy Football Today from CBSSports.com.
Let's play Start 'em and Sit 'em for Fantasy Week 5. Welcome, everybody. This is Fantasy Football Today here on CBSSports.com, a special edition for CBS Local Sports. I'm Adam Azer, Jamie Eisenberg, Dave Richard. Let's do it, guys. We got quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, a start and a sit at each position. Jamie, start Eli Manning against the woeful Eagles defense.
Yeah, I don't know how many times we've said start Eli Manning since week 1, but you know what? This is one of those weeks where you can buy into Eli Manning again. As you said, woeful Philadelphia Eagles. Their defense is horrible. Every quarterback that's faced the Philadelphia Eagles so far has had success, and I think Eli Manning continues that trend. It's going to be his best game since that week 1 performance, and I think you're going to see Eli Manning get his guys involved that he needs to get involved. Clearly, Victor Cruz has played well. He's the number 1 receiver in standard leagues. He owns the Philadelphia Eagles. Hakeem Nick's going to have a bounce-back game this week. Maybe we even get David Wilson out of the backfield going a little bit now that Darrell Scott's out of the way. I like Eli Manning as a top 12 quarterback this week.
Dave, Andrew Luck with Indianapolis hosting Seattle. How do you feel about Luck this week?
You know, I'm not 100% sure how I feel about him, and that's why you've got to list him as a sit at this point. You look at the Seahawks and what they've done against opposing quarterbacks. Only one has thrown multiple touchdowns against them. That was Matt Schaub last week. Each of the last 3 quarterbacks they've taken on have thrown multiple interceptions. Luck and the Colts are going to be a little more balanced, a little bit of run, a little bit of pass, and I think they might have a lot of trouble against the Seahawks this week.
Jamie, remember that woeful Eagles defense?
Oh, yeah.
Still in New York, still facing the Giants. David Wilson, terrible so far for fantasy owners. Is this the week?
He's coming around. The last 2 games, it's starting to look like the David Wilson that we've expected. Clearly they have offensive line issues, but he's starting to make some plays, and I think this is the week where he does turn the corner. It's do or die for a lot of these Giants right now because obviously they're 0-4, they're struggling, but their fantasy options really hurting a lot of owners right now. Eli Manning obviously has done a poor job. David Wilson been terrible. Hakeem Nicks, I think all 3 guys have bounce-back games this week, and it's because of that woeful Eagles defense.
Now the Chiefs defense, anything but woeful. They've been great so far. Titans face the Chiefs. Chris Johnson is a sit.
You saw what Chris Johnson did last week in a tough matchup against the Jets. I think it's the exact same thing this week against Kansas City. There's just something going on with Chris Johnson and whether or not he can really work with this offensive line. It's the same type of thing as last year, except Johnson is trying a little bit harder, and he's being given plenty of opportunities. That was an issue last year. This year, they're letting him run into the wall time after time after time. Kansas City's only allowed 1 rushing touchdown this year. It was to LaShawn McCoy in a long run. We haven't seen any type of explosion from Chris Johnson like that. I think if you start him, you expect around 8 or 9 fantasy points max.
All right, wide receivers. 1 to start and 1 to sit. Denarius Moore, Dave, he is a start as the Raiders of San Diego.
Yeah, and this is all contingent on Terrell Pryor playing because we like him better than Matt Flynn at quarterback for Oakland. But if Terrell Pryor passes all the concussion stuff and is under center, I think Denarius Moore has the game that we expected him to have last week. You look at San Diego, they've allowed 5 touchdowns to wide receivers in their last 3. That's a big sign for me, and I think Denarius Moore can get deep against San Diego. They're weak cornerbacks, and they just lost their best pass rusher for the year in Dwight Freeney.
He's got a touchdown or a 100-yard game in 3 career meetings against the Chargers.
Right. He's going to have a big week.
Okay, let's look at this Dolphins-Ravens game in South Florida. Dolphins trying to recover from that Monday night loss. You think they might try to get Mike Wallace involved, but you're not buying it. You say sit Mike Wallace.
Yeah, it's too hard to trust Mike Wallace at this point. You're talking about a receiver who's got 1 good game out of 4. He can't connect with his quarterback. They can't connect deep. And he struggled in 2 games against Baltimore last year. You look at this Ravens defense, you go back to week 1, clearly they were destroyed by the Denver Broncos offense. Since then, only 1 receiver to score against them, which was Robert Woods last week. They've done a good job against opposing number 1 guys. And so I think they're going to be able to clamp down on Mike Wallace. And even if they don't, when he's running wide open, Ryan Tannehill can't get him the ball. So Mike Wallace really more of a 3rd receiver at best this week.
All right, tight ends now, as we finish it up here on CBSSports.com, and Greg Olsen is a start at Arizona.
I am very excited about Greg Olsen this week, and I think he's going to be a phenomenal start for everybody who uses him. Arizona's been bad against great tight ends this season, and let's just use this metric, 4 catches. You think Greg Olsen can get 4 catches against Arizona this week? Well, every tight end so far this season, there's only been 2 that have had 4 catches against the Cardinals, has scored multiple touchdowns, and had over 100 yards to go with it. I don't think Greg Olsen's going to be that good, but Cam Newton's going to look for him a lot. I think he can find the end zone and put up some nice yardage. This is going to be one of Greg Olsen's best games of the year.
I'm disappointed to see Coby Fleener as a sit.
Yeah,
I like Coby Fleener.
Yeah, I do too, and I think he's got some potential going forward, but this is a tough matchup for him. Seattle, in their last 20 games, only 3 tight ends have reached double digits in fantasy points against them. The good thing for Coby Fleener, the 2 games so far that he's had success, he's had more than 3 targets. 7 targets against Miami or 8 targets against in their matchup last week against Jacksonville. So the 2 games where he's played well, he's been heavily targeted. But I think Seattle's defense knows that Coby Fleener's been targeted, and they know that they could be able to stop him. So he's on the cusp of a top 12 tight end for me. He's my bust alert and start him, sit him this week. But I think there are just a couple guys out there that are better than him. Like I would start Jared Cook this week, for example, over Coby Fleener, and you wouldn't have said that a couple weeks ago.
Okay, well, Jamie, of course, mentioned his start-sit column. We've also got our updated rankings from Dave, Jamie, and Nathan. You can check them out on the website, fantasynews.cbssports.com, and we'll help you set your lineup 11 a.m. Eastern with Fantasy Football Today. This has been a special presentation of Fantasy Football Today for CBS Local Sports. For Dave Richard and Jamie Eisenberg, I'm Adam Azer. We'll talk to you next week.